Now, you mentioned the security component of climate. This is very important because we are already seeing evidence that conflict and migration crises are increasing because of things like droughts and fires that are accelerated by the problems in our climate. There's some evidence that this contributed, for example, to the Syrian civil war.
We could see climate wars in the future. Let's not let that happen.
We're the generation that has the most at stake. Our generation is going to be on the business end of climate change for the next 50 years. Our generation, by the way, provided most of the troops in the conflicts after 9/11. And yet, our generation stands to be the first in American history to be worse off economically than our parents if we don't do something to change that.
21st century security threats include things like cyber threats as well as things like dealing with climate security. And here you have a president focused on what amounts to a 17th century security solution, which is putting up a wall, at a moment when the biggest threats to this country aren't things that are stopped by walls. They're things like hurricanes and cyber attacks. This is the hardest thing we will have done, certainly in my lifetime as a country. This is on par with winning World War II, perhaps even more challenging than that. Does anybody really think we're going to meet that goal if between now and 2050 we are still at each other's throats? It's not going to happen.
The Pentagon has talked about the effect of the climate crisis on the military.
Absolutely. Look, a shockingly large proportion of our military assets and bases are endangered by climate change. Needless to say, especially from a Navy perspective, a lot of that's going to be on coastlines that are impacted by everything from sea level rise to the increasingly frequent and severe storms. But also, we're seeing more and more instability around the world. You know, there's evidence that droughts that might have been partly worsened by climate change contributed to everything from the Syrian civil war to the migration out of Central America that's starting to hit our own borders.
Right now, we are spending a fraction of the intention and resources on things like the artificial intelligence research that China is doing right now. If we fall behind on artificial intelligence, the most expensive ships that the United States is building just turn into bigger targets. Insurance companies that are in the business of determining risk, and military officers and leaders who are in the business of keeping this country safe are saying, hey, we got a problem here. And the bottom line is, the President of the United States cannot keep us safe. And the reason he cannot keep us safe is that he doesn't want to admit that there's even a problem. We do not have a 21st century security strategy coming from this president. After all, he's relying on 17th century security technologies like a moat full of alligators or a big wall.